Chris Colfer became an international sensation as Kurt Hummel on the hit TV show Glee. Now he's gone from the stage to the page, and he reveals how listening to his grandmother helped turn him into a best-selling author. Congratulations on the book.
Oh, thank you so much.
So tell me a little bit about growing up in a small conservative farming community in Clovis, California.
You're bored all the time. So in retrospect, it was really the best thing that could have happened to me because I was just so bored all the time. It was really the best exercise for my imagination.
And books were kind of an escape for you back in those days.
Much.
So tell me how that worked, because you know, reading through the Land of Stories books, for me, I can see that they create worlds, that they are meant to transport the reader.
Right.
So you're still, I think, writing for that young guy in Clovis, California.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because when I was a kid, I had a terrible time learning how to read. I was not a good reader and had to go through special courses to help with it. You know, the only thing that really got me to be a better reader was the Harry Potter series because it captivated my attention and my imagination. And sometimes I feel bad for kids that are also struggling with reading because in schools, like the choices they give kids are not always the most entertaining source. You know, they're kind of sometimes boring. So I think it's really important to put that, books like mine out there that, really take kids on an adventure that really takes them away from whatever issue they may be dealing with.
And was it an effort to create a world, and I've read you speaking about this, where you kind of fit in?
Yeah, I think every kid's dream is to go to a place where they are completely validated and they realize that their differences aren't their disability, but because they're just not understood because they're far advanced than the people they're with. And I think that was always my dream. I always wanted to be taken away. And I remember on my 11th birthday, I waited up all night waiting for that owl to come with my letter to Hogwarts. And he's still late. He's about 16 years late. My grandmother's always been my greatest champion and cheerleader. And also a critic sometimes. And when I was a kid, I would write stories. I'd write them out on a page, and I'd print the page, and I'd ride my bike over to her house, and I'd give it to her, and she'd do all my spelling check and my grammar check, and if she liked the story, she'd keep it in a pile beside her table, and if she didn't like it, she'd crumble it up and throw it away, and say, "Christopher, you can do better." And I've written 14 books now, and she's still the toughest editor I've ever had to work with.
And how did that make you feel? The crumpled up thing, I mean, it prepared you, I guess, for a life on television and in the public eye.
Yeah.
But how did it make you feel at the time? And is it now something you look back on and go, well, that taught me something? I
haven't thought about it, but I'm sure it's crippled me with issues now that I think about it. I think actually that's probably the reason why I'm such a perfectionist. Is, and it's funny, even to this day when I do something new, I always run it by Grandma first.
Really?
Yes, I do.
And does she still crumple up?
No, she doesn't. She's gotten much better. So, but no, it was good. It was I think a lot of people that are successful have someone like that in their life that really gave it to them straight.
Let's talk about the Land of Stories. Worlds Collide is the new one. I mean, this is 6 books, and I thought, what's interesting reading through these Land of Stories books is how much autobiographical information about yourself is in there, because these stories occurred to you when you were a little boy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And how do they occur to you?
Oh God, I think really very much like a lot of authors talk about. I really just had like that lightning moment where a story came and it was fully formed. It just kind of popped into your imagination. But I think one of my favorite things about being an author, in particular this series, is how many kids I've inspired to write themselves. And so making Connor, who's one of the lead characters, a writer, and showing that flash forward, seeing him as this successful writer, I hope it inspires kids to write themselves more.
Are you hearing from them? Are you hearing from your readers?
Oh, yeah.
Because I would imagine with young adult fans, they are very vocal. And you're reachable.
Yeah.
You can find you on Twitter, you can find you on Instagram, all that stuff. So what kind of things do they tell you?
Well, that's the best thing about kids is they have no filter whatsoever. So if they have a problem with something, they'll tell you.
Right.
But unlike adults, it's never about like word choice or tone or emotional structure. It's, you did that thing to my favorite character. How could you do that to them? How could you put Froggy in a magic mirror? How could you? So they're honest to you. They're very honest.
And as you started off writing fan fiction, are they writing riffs on these
do,
stories and getting
yes.
back to you?
I do. I see some really adorable fan fiction on Land of Stories, and I try not to read it because I don't want to take someone's idea on accident, or heaven forbid, I think of something and then I see it, and then I would never want them to think that I took it from them. But but the ones that are written by teenagers get a little crazy sexual, as a lot of fan fiction does. So that's kind of disturbing. So I try to stay away from that.
You must have had some odd fan fiction written about you during the Glee years.
Yes.
Was there anything that really struck you as being very odd? Anything you can tell us on television?
It was all so odd. It was just so weird having these teenagers like describe your body parts, a friend. I never went looking for it. Let me say I never went looking for it, but I did have some people send me. There was this one where I gave birth to a litter of kittens. I'm not sure where they came out of me, but I don't know if it gets stranger than that.
Yeah, that is kind of odd.
Yeah.
Pretty good story, though, I imagine.
I guess so, yeah.
If you love kittens.
It's imaginative, yeah.
Now, when you wrote the first Land of Stories book, they had approached you to do a memoir. You were still a teenager.
I was 19.
18, 19 years old,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
So they've approached you to write a memoir. Really, what do you write about at that point? And you said,
Right.
I don't want to do that, but I've got another idea. So it pushed you into sort of big-time publishing.
I really just wanted to do one book just to get the story out of my system. They had approached me to do a memoir, and I thought, I'm 19. Just because other celebrities do that doesn't mean I should. And I thought, well, I'd have a lot more fun if I actually wrote the series that I wanted to when I was a kid. So I did that, and thankfully they've gotten more and more popular with each book, and I've gotten more and more readers. And it was really hard when the first few books came out because a lot of people didn't really want to take me seriously as an author, and rightfully so. I probably wouldn't have either.
Or they might have thought they were ghost-written or
ghost
something
written,
like
right?
that.
When I write every word, to my fault and to my credit.
After the third book, you said you fell into a bit of a funk because that was supposed to be it. It was supposed to be a trilogy.
Yeah.
And then the third book, I assume, sold so many copies that you got to do some more.
Yeah.
But you fell into a bit of a funk because you had to let those characters go, or you thought you did. What happens now that Land of Stories is wrapped? It seems anyway for now.
Yeah.
How are you feeling now about it?
It's really bittersweet because I love the personal connection you have with the characters when you're writing it, because it really feels like it's just like you and them alone in a room together. So I'm going to really miss the intimacy with my characters. But when I sat down and I finished the prologue of the last book is when I was the most emotional because it was the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
By the time the book was I'd finished writing it, I knew about the films, and so I was very, very excited. But it's very bittersweet. It's really much, it's like sending your kids off to college.
Yeah.
You're going to miss them, but you know that hopefully they're on a good path.
So as a young guy starting to write, you have said that when you're young, you don't have the expectations that perhaps you might as you get a little older. So at 19, you're like, well, of course I can write a book.
Oh yeah,
of course.
Absolutely.
And that sort of gets beaten out of you a little bit as you get older, and I guess more realistic.
Yeah, totally. No, absolutely. I think most things that I've done, I was just. Luckily did them when I was too young to be afraid. As you get older, you get more and more afraid, and the critics come out the more successful you get. And so it can paralyze you. So I'm really thankful that I started everything so young when I was too dumb to know any better.
In the Mother Goose Diaries, that's one of the companion books here. You talk about LGBTQ rights. And these books are not political, but as I said earlier, you weave your own experience into these things in a really lovely way that makes them feel fantastic, makes them feel fantastical, I guess is the word, but also makes them feel kind of intimate.
Yeah.
How important is it for you to expose younger people to some of these issues that maybe they're not they're not having addressed in school, or they're not talking about amongst their friends?
It's less important for me to expose new issues to a new audience What's really important to me is familiarity,
Right.
and so that every kid, no matter what their orientation is, no matter what their gender or their race, or if they're disabled or not, if they can find something about the book that they relate to, that is what is most important to me. And if by default that does expose things to a new audience, then I'm very proud of that. But it's crazy. It's funny how you say that they're not very political, because they're not. But they think they push for the common good, and the benefit of everyone, and that itself is political now.
I would imagine that as a younger man, these books would have helped you in some ways, growing up in a small town.
Yeah,
in that way?
definitely. I try to fill the books with lessons and things I would have wished someone told me back in the day. I'd absolutely try to do that.
One of the Time Magazine 100 most influential people.
They didn't say it was a good influence. They just said influence.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Could be a bad. I've never
Could be
thought
a bad
of that. Could be a bad
influence,
influence. So when something like that happens, I mean, you got famous very quickly, and then all of a sudden you're on this list, a very rarefied list. What does it do to your head? How do you feel about it? And how do you sit with it today?
Oh gosh, that's a very good question. I think it's so important to not even the mega accolades to really take everything with a grain of salt.
Right.
Because even with advocacy, it really, everyone has such a short shelf life. So I think it's really important to, really be thankful for the things that come your way, but also really make sure you have a life underneath it that you can fall back on, because otherwise, it's kind of like that Norma Desmond effect. One day the spotlight will fade and you'll just be alone with pictures of yourself, and no one wants that.
And a dried monkey.
And
in
a dry
coffin.
dead
Yes.
monkey, right? Like, as God's my witness, there will never be a dry dead monkey next to me.
On your passport, when it says what do you do for a living, what do you put down?
Oh gosh, I usually put author.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
people ask the least questions, which
right.
is author. I don't get too artsy and say storyteller. I mean, like, the TSA agent's not going to care if that I'm a storyteller. So.
But storyteller is I think how I've heard you describe yourself before, both as an actor and as a writer.
Yeah.
And I guess the idea of telling stories is it's part of our DNA. We've done it forever. Since we sat around campfires, and so I guess that's just one of the ways that you can reach out and touch the most people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anytime you can give someone a break from their issues or their troubles, I think is such a gift.
Chris,
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
what a pleasure. Thank you.